My name is John. This is Jason, and we are connecting with you, DevCentral. This is DevCentral Connects, and we are excited to be here. And this week, we're going to talk about some really cool security stuff. We've got a fascinating guest that we're going to bring on that I think everyone's just going to love to talk about the topics that we're going to talk about today. So we're excited to have everyone out there. As always, we want to interact with you live. We're on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and Periscope and all kinds of stuff, man. If you can stream to it, we try to stream to it, right? But anyway, I got to say, Jason, first of all, you had your inaugural You Want Answers show last week, and you led off with a bit of a Missouri-Arkansas competition. So I have taken it upon myself to find a rebuttal to that, or maybe some cross-examination or whatever. So I don't have that today, but one day when you least expect it, I will come over the top with some maybe some good, comeback to that.
Is that one day when Arkansas can actually take the lead in the head-to-head?
We'll see.
I'm not sure that day's coming.
We still talk about the 1964 football championship and the 1994 basketball championship, or one of many track and field championships. So it's good times. Good times.
I think Mizzou has a baseball championship, but that might be about it.
Yeah, and we could talk about the Arkansas, the World Series a couple of years ago, but we won't talk about that because they did not catch that foul ball that would have given them the World Series, and then they lost the whole thing the next game. So, but we won't talk about that stuff. Good times. Well, hey man, so I thought to start this one off, little fun intro here. We could say, so I was on vacation last week. I drove to Colorado and back. Beautiful area, Colorado Rocky Mountains. And so as I'm sitting there driving, I was thinking about what's the longest amount of time that you've ever driven in a day, like in a car. So what would that be for you?
Wow. So when I was a kid, I remember my dad was military, and we came back to the States for the summer. I think it was the summer of '83, so I'd have been 9.
Okay.
And we landed in, I don't remember what Air Force base it was, but we had a flight from Spain all the way to South Carolina on a C-141 aircraft. And It was not a commercial aircraft. We were in jump seats. It was like 38 degrees in the back of the plane. It was a miserable, very, very long flight.
It gets cold up there at those altitudes.
Yes, exactly. It does. And you are not taken care of as a customer of fine experience in the back of an Air Force heavy body. So we land in maybe it was Columbia, South Carolina, whatever Air Force base is down there.
Yeah.
And we drove from there to St. Louis straight. And so It was, I don't know how long a drive it was, but as a 9-year-old, it felt like the longest trip ever. And it was me, my 2 siblings in the back seat of, back then, not very big cars. And so we laid blankets over the hump between the seats.
Yes.
And it was.
Everyone knows about that hump between the seats. Yeah, you put the blankets on it.
So we took turns laying down and taking naps, but it was forever. As an adult, my longest is probably Austin to home. I was down for actually an iRules summit with a bunch of sales engineers.
Yeah.
And we left at noon from Austin. And the drive itself is only about 13 hours, but I think it took us almost 21 hours because it was just, we went through pretty much Waco through Dallas. I think took about 7 hours of backed up traffic.
Oh, just I-35.
And it was just, we should have just pulled off and spent the night somewhere, but it was like, we got to get home.
No doubt.
So it was like 6 or 7 in the morning when we actually got home.
Goodness.
I think.
So that's just all night long.
It was ridiculous. And both my wife and I are doing 30-minute shifts because we're falling asleep. It was terrible.
Yeah. And so it's, and what's worse is that those overnight hours would have been between Dallas and St. Louis. So that's not the most exciting driving through North Texas and Oklahoma and all that. So Pasilva, it's good to see you out there, my man.
18 hours. Wow.
Goodness. Milwaukee to Rhode Island, Wisconsin to Rhode Island. So
Adrian, welcome to the show.
Adrian, hola, mi amigo. Good stuff, man.
Jose, welcome.
All righty. And
then Leslie. Wow. Okay. You got me beat. Hey, both from Austin. So that's
what is it about Austin, Texas, man? What do you have to drive 21 hours every time you leave Austin?
Wow.
Although Austin is kind of in that spot in Texas. If you want to leave Texas from Austin, you're going to be driving for a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
good stuff. 18 plus hours Spokane to Houston. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Spokane to Houston. Houston is way down there. Man, Daryl and Boo.
Hello.
Good day. It is a good day. It's DevCentral Connects Day. We love it. We love it.
No, we're not streaming Instagram. Instagram actually doesn't have an open API to allow for that right now. So
Come on,
at least from our streaming platform, we can't do that yet.
Yeah. So Daniel, we've thought about bringing in some TikTok. Just shorten these connects to like 1 minute each, and it'd be like, good to go. Connect, done.
Minus the dancing, because I have no game there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome.
40 hours. Wow.
Tucson.
Guys, yeah.
Matthew
I feeling bad about my 18 to 21 hour stuff.
How do you go from Tucson, Arizona to Knoxville, man? That's some Interstate 40 time right there, man. Wow. Yeah. Way to go, Matthew.
Or
Good
10
stuff.
or 10 and then swing north. Yeah.
Or 10 and north. Yeah. But at some point you're going to be on 40 going through Tennessee. San Diego. Man, you talk about that's some West Coast time right there. Just head north.
But
and
that's
just
some
go.
like real, like you feel bad that you're done with that drive, right? Because you got the coastline the whole way.
Yeah, I mean you've gone through the Pacific Coast. I love it.
Hey, a LinkedIn comment. Woo!
LinkedIn, way to go.
Awesome.
Drove
Hello, LinkedIn user.
London to Scotland. That's amazing. That's amazing.
10 hours.
That's
amazing.
amazing.
You can go, at least on the maps, you look at England from here in the States, like, that's
just an island.
Thing.
It's a little island,
right?
The United Kingdom or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's
you guys don't like
small.
have the interstate roads like we have here. So.
Right. That could be. Yep. So, man.
Yep.
So I drove London to Scotland 10 hours. Yeah, it's
right.
Yeah, College and more. Good to go, man.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So it's always fun to just kind of break the ice, kind of get to know what everybody's out there doing. And it's it's summertime time frame, at least here in the northern hemisphere of Earth, planet Earth, right? So yeah, people are going to be out there driving. So be careful, and if you drive a lot, then drink a lot of caffeine or whatever you got to do. So stay safe out there. Good to go. Well, hey man, so I think we should bring on our guest, and his name is Dan Falkenberg. He works at our Silverline team, and been with F5 for about 9 years now, Dan, and about 5 at the Silverline, behind the Silverline desk. So man, it's awesome to have you on. We're going to talk about Silverline, what it is, and a bunch of security stuff. But thanks for joining us here today on DevCentral Connects.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. It's an honor to be here. Good to see you.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. So for those people, there may be a couple of people watching today that listen to us, and in the midst of them trying to figure out how long they have driven in the car, in years past, they may think to themselves, what is this thing called Silverline, and what does it do? So Dan, maybe you could give us a little bit of a heads up on, do you even Silverline today? What is it?
Well, I have to throw my head into the ring. I thought I was going to be the winner until I saw those 40s come out. Because my record,
gosh, yeah. What's yours, Dan? I meant to ask you that.
My record was, so I'm from, you talked the Northern Hemisphere, so I'm a little farther north of you guys. I'm in Minnesota, if you can't hear the accent yet.
Love it.
I drove from here, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, out to get my daughters when they were growing up, out from the state of Virginia, and back in one trip. So I think I did 36 hours.
Goodness.
Don't ask me why I tried that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know Norfolk is 13 hours from where I am. So
yeah, it's 22 one way. So I got there and halfway back, and then I slept in Ohio somewhere.
You're like, man, yeah, no doubt.
I don't even know where I was.
Right,
exactly.
We think.
We got one comment from Eric here. From home to the pub and back felt like 12 hours.
Eric, we feel you, man. We feel you, Eric. I love it. Good to go. That's awesome, man. So Minnesota to Norfolk, Virginia, and back. That's crazy, man.
Glad I don't have to make that trek anymore. We're good to go now.
Good thing that's not like a daily commute. Hey,
exactly.
Hey, everybody, I got to head to work today. I'll be there, on Friday or whatever. So good stuff.
Get my pilot's license will be better.
Right. Right. I love it. Awesome, man. All right. Well, hey, so Silverline today. So we've got some amazing capabilities, F5 Silverline, and like I said, maybe some people have never even heard of it. So give us the quick, tell us what Silverline is and what it does.
Yeah. So the quick rundown is, I forget the years as I go by. 5-6 years ago, we acquired a company called Defense.net, and they were our initial foray into mitigating volumetric DDoS attacks. for years, we've been doing it for customers in the data center, right? Big IPs do lots of things. Attack protection was just one of them, but we didn't have a solution for volumetric protection. So what we did is we acquired them. They became our point of presence for volumetric DDoS protection, and we quickly added on our managed web app firewall services to that infrastructure. So for the first 5 years or so, it was the core two services that Silverline delivered as a managed service, volumetric DDoS protection from both just a cloud perspective, as well as a hybrid story where we can also do things with big IPs on-prem to signal when things happen to shift traffic to the cloud services when we need to, stop that massive flood attack that's coming in, that where it doesn't matter what you've bought on-prem. Say you spent, $10 million on every single box you can. If your pipe's full, your pipe's full, right? So that's where Silverline comes into play, is that managed DDoS mitigation service. And we layered on, as I mentioned, the WAF services, leveraging our own technology that customers have installed in their data centers for years. And maybe they don't have either the team or the time or the efforts to be able to do it. So we as F5 are now able to manage web app firewall services on their behalf in our infrastructure. So as long as that application is visible from the internet, we can get in front of it from a reverse proxy standpoint, right? And then start to apply security profiles to it to protect those applications. So that's the core of what Silverline has done. Over time, obviously, it started with an acquisition. And as our most recent acquisition, as most people know, that we acquired Shape Services a few months ago, coming up on half a year now, I want to say, is that we are integrating that. So that is our third major service offering now in Silverline, is delivering Shape Services for that advanced automation, fraud and abuse use cases, and protection for those applications, in addition to what we can provide from a WAF perspective. So it's all layering on nicely, bringing the right tools to the right attack at the right time. So it's exciting times.
That's really cool. How is that delivered from a engaging with customers standpoint? Like, is that a traditional sales cycle, or how do you do Silverline if you're a customer and you want this stuff?
So it depends on, I would say it depends on what the customer needs. Some customers need all services. Some customers only need one or two things, right? Like maybe they only need volumetric DDoS protection to start out, but then they say, you also do these services in there? Yeah, I want to stand up my applications. Maybe I move them to the cloud. Maybe I just need to actually start doing a WAF. Maybe they've never done a WAF. So we'll have the conversations around what their needs are at the end of the day to deliver them the right solutions that they need. So some customers are a combination of all, but some customers are only one of the three. So we'll build a solution for what the customer needs from an F5 perspective, whether that's leveraging on-prem infrastructure or whether it's all cloud-based stuff that we deliver via the Silverline managed services. So each customer can be slightly custom, but there is a lot of similarities that we see across, the verticals, whether that's education, retail, government, you name it. There's a lot of similarities that we do see from, applications needing those protections.
That's awesome.
I had a question on like you talk about defense in depth. For customers that take advantage of WAF, do you see most of them take advantage of WAF holistically, in that F5 Silverline manages all of it? Is that the predominant use case, or some take that generic policy of, I want protocol validation, I want I have these types of services running, I want these generic protections where you are, and then in my environment I'm going to do the more fine-tuned policy protections?
We see a little bit across the board. So there are all use cases. So if they're mature F5 customers, they might be doing application security manager on-prem, right, where they already have a team doing that. And they might be, say, they're deploying new services in AWS, Azure, Google, you name it, whatever that public cloud provider is. They may not want to have that traffic route to their data center and the backup to the cloud. So they'll use us for that instance, or they'll use us for just lifting and shifting policy workloads. They don't even want to come to their data center first. So we'll deploy in Silverline, we'll be upstream from them. So we're stopping all that bad traffic, all that noise, just to knock it down even before it gets to their front door, no matter where that front door lives. As I mentioned, as long as it's internet facing, whether it's in their data center, in a colo, in a public cloud, we can just knock down a lot of that noise and have that. I don't like using the single pane of glass, but people understand that across the industry, where it's like you can have the same security posture no matter where your applications live, with that WAF policy, with those, the DDoS mitigation capabilities built in, and now layering on all the fraud and abuse use cases. So customers can move their apps around. We do have a number of customers that leverage multiple public clouds. That's another use case that's coming up more and more, where we can basically load balance the public cloud environment from Silverline, where we become the front door, then they only allow traffic in from us. So it's that same point of view. So yeah, going back to your original question, Jason, is each customer is a little bit unique, but I'd say the majority of them either don't have the time or the staff to do the hard lifting of a WAF policy to do all the care and feeding and keeping up the infrastructure, the coding, the signatures, all the stuff that we just deliver transparently as the nature of the service is probably the bulk of what our customer use base is.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I know, you talk about managed policies. I know one of the issues that people have had historically with a WAF is trying to, number one, just figure out what the policy needs to look like, or how do I even create this policy, So I know we joked, hey, do you even Silverline? Some people, I would say, do you even WAF, do you even WAF policy, bro? Anyway, but yeah, so that to me, that seems like a huge benefit for Silverline to manage those policies. But then also, once you have figured out, like kind of cracked that nut, you've got the policy built, to have that standardized across all of your locations, whether it's multi-cloud or whatever, but have a consistent policy is another huge thing that people struggle with, So it sounds like Silverline helps with both of those, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether that's creating a baseline that we want to start with and then nuance it for each different application, because that's where the art versus the science of creating a WAF policy comes, right? Whereas, applications may be similar, but they're not always unique, where a customer might have the same off-the-shelf app, but they've customized it a little bit where they need specific protections where, we can deliver that with the same framework no matter where it lives, and we can make it custom when needed.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, super powerful, man. Super powerful. One of the things that I find fascinating whenever you talk about Silverline and DDoS and all that, DDoS is such a huge thing that companies have to worry about these days, or like you said, Shape with the automated attacks with like botnet stuff, which botnets can launch DDoS attacks, but they do other things as well. Is just maybe the pattern of like what kind of attacks are happening today. You see in the news, hey, this big thing happened or whatever. But maybe from the trenches, from what you guys are seeing, are there like super sophisticated attacks going on that people are over here, studying for years to try to come up with this new attack vector? Or are you seeing more of just kind of the same tried and true methods, that have worked forever, and people just continue to kind of go back to those vectors? So what are some of the recent trends that you're seeing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I can talk to, we see a lot of, you mentioned what's been around forever. SQL injection continues to be an attempt that customers are always still protecting against, right? I've actually ran into some cases when I used to be a consultant running around the country helping customers install these, is they've had SQL injection built into their application by design because it was a badly coded one. Whether they fixed it in a timely fashion or not, that was up to them. But just knowing that that's still out there and people still use it to gain it is amazing. And we've known about it for 20 plus years. So we still see that every day in and day out, that's still happening. But we are also seeing a lot of the more sophisticated, the credential stuffing type of attacks, which is exactly the perfect use case for the fraud and abuse protections, because we can bring that automation visibility and identify, are these good bots? Are these bad bots? And make some decisions on just a ton of different points of telemetry, whether, it's probably 100 different signals that we're taking. And it's not just, everybody knows user agents, everybody knows IPs, they can be spoofed. Everybody knows, like a browser plugin, they can, spoof, pretend they're Chrome or whatever, but taking in all these different points with, you mentioned the Shape capabilities and adding that on, I think is a lot of the more recent attacks that we've seen, working with whether that's state agencies, federal agencies, with, everyone's out of work recently, right? We had a huge unemployment drop with the COVID fun. Fun. Right. So there's suddenly people out of work, and so they're collecting unemployment, right? One of the big things that we saw in the news was fraud against these unemployment benefits for different states. So what they're able to do is we're able to go in line and start detecting these and mitigating that attack, so the states aren't paying out the wrong people in some cases. Or as well, I think it just hit the news a week or two ago, I forget when it was, that with all these checks that they mailed out, it was like $1.4 billion was sent to deceased people.
Right.
So if you can get your hands on that and pretend that you're these people, who's going to call and say that they're wrong?
Yeah.
So we're finding these new use cases with the different the tides of the days as how we protect against that. And it's very interesting that we can bring these tools to identify these bad actors that are targeting state agencies and stuff like that, and different people, whether it's Silverline or whether it's F5 on-prem. Both things do have a use case. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's, I thought the same thing, like here in America, when they started sending out checks, like, the government passed the big funding bill and, however many trillions of dollars that was. It's crazy money. And yeah, they're just sending out checks. And if they couldn't find you via your latest tax return, then they were just going to send you a paper check in the mail. I mean, and even before they said that, which I guess I kind of get that if that's the way they have to disseminate the money. But immediately my mind went to, hey, I can just walk to my next door neighbor's mailbox and steal his check, or he can do that to me. That's going to get crazy. There's going to be so much fraud.
Right.
So, yeah.
Or they try and do it with a credit card even. Now you're starting to tell people that they're going to be mailing out prepaid credit cards. Talk about mail theft and mail fraud.
No doubt.
We're going to have no more postal workers left.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodness, man. That's that's a good point. It's like the post office, truck is going to turn into like one of these money
truck, right?
Yeah, it's like, great, he's going to need to be an armed guard.
That's right.
Just to carry all this money that he's going to hand out that day. Crazy
right.
stuff. It's but I mean, yeah, the landscape is ripe for attackers and these guys to just do all kinds of crazy stuff. So to know that capabilities like Shape, Silverline, all this stuff is there to protect not only DDoS but now all these automated attacks is super powerful. So really, really cool stuff. Yeah, we're good to go, man. You mentioned credential stuffing. That's I know you mentioned that's maybe one of the more sophisticated or newer ones beyond like SQL injection. So do you see that a lot, coming through Silverline and some of our customers and all that getting attacked with credential stuffing? And what are some ways we can help with that?
Yeah, whether it's different financial industries or banks or credit unions that are out there, we're seeing a lot more of that activity pick up. And it was a thing that even I learned just a few weeks ago, that the term credential stuffing was coined by one of the founders of Shape Security. So they're part of our team now. So I find that really interesting that they were actually the ones that came up with that just as an attack vector. They called it credential stuffing, and now it's a thing that everybody knows about, and they're trying to figure out how they defend against it. So I would say that's definitely one of the top use case attack vectors that people are using, whether it's buying, however much it costs these days on the dark web to buy a list of password and username files, and they just replay that. So we're finding that it's the economics of attacks come into play, where it's, the bigger an attack is, the less sophisticated it is, going to your talk there. So if someone's trying to do a massive volumetric DDoS attack, right, it's usually very simple. It's a UDP flood or something like that, where they're over a terabit. But we're seeing these credential stuffings aren't anywhere near that, or they might be in conjunction with that, where they might send a flood trying to take out like logging equipment. And so anybody that's on the IT side has no idea what's happening because their logging equipment went offline, so they can't see what's happening. And then they'll surgically insert, the smaller bots that might be trying to impersonate a user and pretend that they're that, doing username and password use cases from a set that they bought off the dark web. Say, all right, we know these are very commonly used. I forget the stats, but if you use your password once, you probably use it 5 times for different places that we have to log in. So if they owned it one spot, they can replay it somewhere else and see if they can get in and get access. So we do see the multi-vector as a common one, but yeah, more and more it's these, they will retool and try to be, below the radar. Like you start trying to just do some basic rate limiting. We're only going to accept, so many transactions per second. Yeah. Well, they'll figure out what that level is and they'll come in right below it.
Yeah.
So then you just got to retool. So it's a game of whack-a-mole at the end of the day, where you're doing this, or you're taking a user agent offline, or they spoof something else. So instead of just using those few pieces, what we're able to do is take in all that telemetry that we mentioned early on and just say, or identify who's actually real based on a very high number of signals that are coming in.
Right.
On the forensic side, and this is just my curiosity, is it primarily the crime syndicates and all that are doing the sophisticated stuff, in addition to just the volumetric attacks? Because I mean, time is money, And so, for the script kiddies, they have all day and every day. They're in their, mom's basement, and they're, doing what they need to do. But
they always live in their mom's basement, by the way. That's the only place you'll ever find me.
Right. So yeah, they're hanging out in mom's basement, drinking Mountain Dew and attacking the internet. But, there's a limit to the amount of resources they have to do that. But from a crime syndicate standpoint, and even just professional criminals, the time is money, and if they're going to go after you with a sophisticated attack, that doesn't come cheap, whether it's their time or their money.
Exactly. If you're trying to spin up a massive botnet that's trying to simulate human activity, that's a very expensive thing to do from a resource standpoint. So the buyout or the payoff has to be higher than what it costs to launch the attack, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can buy a DDoS stressor boot test for like $20 to do a 100 gig attack or whatever. We see a lot of high schoolers and kids do that, actually, where it becomes test time. Back in the old days when they actually went to school.
Way back when I physically went to school.
Right. Before we had distance learning, and that challenge is we'd see students would actually hire these boot stressors for a couple bucks and put it on probably dad's credit card, and they take down their school. That's another attack vector that we've seen just come into mind as we talk through this. Is so those are super cheap, right? Their goal is they don't want to take the test, so their payoff is right there, because they took off their offline testing or their online testing. But yeah, going back to you. So if you're trying to be very expensive, and then you could start to talk about, nation states and what they're doing, and some of that where they have a ton of resources. That's where you get the really sophisticated, and that's where you want the highest level of capabilities to protect that. And, human click farms type of thing, and high level fraud that we're able to bring to the table as well with the integrations that we have now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you're not wanting to take the test, I'd go the Ferris Bueller route and just change the scores.
Just not show up.
Goodness, we've all seen Ferris Bueller. We know how the game works, right? No, that's fascinating stuff. I mean, you never put it past human ingenuity, I guess. If there's always going to be bad guys looking to do bad things, and even though there's certain systems designed to do good things, they can be used for bad, right? And so you've got to have these teams to defend against all these bad actors, So, and I thought it was fascinating too, where you were talking about, you may have kind of a multifaceted attack where you're trying, as an attacker, maybe you're trying to credential stuff into, say, some financial institution to get a username and password that works, and then you can start transferring money. But you're gonna like UDP flood or some kind of cheap DDoS attack, volumetric attack against their logging system. Which, newsflash, no one ever reads their logs anyway, so don't even worry.
It's too late. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's the number 10 on the most current OWASP top 10 is insufficient logging and monitoring. But nonetheless, it's I guess from an attacker perspective, that's a pretty smart thing to do, is take out the logging capability and then come in with the credential stuffing, and then no one's going to know that you were even there. So it's really cool just to kind of try to get in the mind of the attacker and say, hey, what are they trying to do? And like you said, it's kind of whack-a-mole a little bit, but I like to think, at least on the Silverline side, from our shape stuff and DDoS protection and WAF and all the managed policy stuff and all that we can whack these moles pretty well and keep them down. So it's I think, like you said, there's a lot of different points of telemetry that Silverline can use via, in this case, maybe the shape capabilities to tell if there's a user that's a bad bot or a good bot or a human user. And so I don't know if you know the stats on this, but I don't know. It seems to me like we can really stop the bad bots. Silverline shape very, very successfully in most cases. So I don't know if you've got maybe some stats on that or what, but it's pretty powerful.
No, I would say just to the point where you're talking about the whack-a-mole, is that makes it so we don't have to play that game anymore. Where even our SOC analysts don't have to play whack-a-mole anymore, because we can put this advanced identification of traffic to know, are these coming from aggregators? Is this coming from Mint or Intuit or whoever it is that's doing this aggregator? That's actually good bots that we want to let that through, because it's someone that signed up for Intuit and they're doing all their accounts, right? So suddenly all these things are trying to log in. Well, that's actually good traffic. So we're able to identify that. But we also know, hey, if they're a customer of this airline and they're also a customer of this coffee shop and they do this and this and this, we can do some correlations now with all these shape artificial intelligence and machine learning, where it knows, this is actually a good person. And you start to remove the friction that users had that we've all come to hate and love at the same time is, multi-factor authentication and answering CAPTCHAs, where all that becomes a thing of the past, because we're able to take in all these different telemetry points and identify good versus bad immediately. And it's not a reactive thing. It's we see it coming and we're able to put it into place, and we can actually show people, yep, here's the malicious attempts. Here's why they were identified. This is what was used. And I give them full visibility into how that traffic action is labeled.
Yeah, I know machine language and higher level artificial intelligence doesn't work this way, but when you're looking at all those different telemetry points, the way I think about it, it's like if you've ever played chess online, and you have all the different chess algorithms that you can use, and you can set your bar from easy all the way to like hard, depending on the chess engine that you're using, and think, okay, well, I'm playing somebody who's thinking 5 to 7 moves ahead, then or I'm sliding over and it's like, okay, the engine is thinking 20 moves ahead, and then coming back to kind of an AI, it's like they have all the moves, and so no matter where you're moving in the thing, that solution set is they know your game.
Right. The game has already been fully played.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
a matter of executing it now. Yeah. That's
we already know the end of global thermonuclear war, and we'll show you how it ends.
Yeah. That's another Matthew Broderick. Maybe we should kind of subtitle this in Matthew Broderick live stream.
Exactly. Wow.
Ferris Bueller and war games. So one other thing I was going to ask about too, Dan, is on Silverline. I heard this really fancy, cool rumor. I don't think it's a rumor. That as a customer, when you come into Silverline and you're like, hey, I want to protect my web application, but I don't, maybe I've got 1,000 different URLs or whatever it is, but I don't necessarily need to protect the one that's, /cat.jpg page or whatever, right? I just want to protect the login page or the whatever page, right? Then you can actually protect like very direct endpoints in your web application on Silverline. And not only that, but you can take different actions, per endpoint that you have protected. So it's extremely configurable, and it's very, I'm going to call it like surgical precision of how you protect these things. So maybe you can confirm or deny that rumor is true or not.
Yeah, I would say on multiple levels, that's actually true. Whether that's in the WAF policy itself, that's the bread and butter of the service, right? Where we can say, we have this known vulnerability in this specific page because of whatever the reason is. We want to protect it higher than that because we want to put more rules around that specific endpoint.
Okay.
Or we actually have other endpoints, which is usually the target of the credential stuffings, where it's, account create, forgot password, where these bad actors are trying to manipulate that. That's another part that we can put on those services to say, yeah, if we identify automation hitting these specific URLs, we're going to be very different in how we react. And it can be, we don't want to block it. We can start to play the deception game is where we start to get to, where it's like, because you don't always want to trigger the bad actors that you found them.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to send them to a different page. So yes, we can be very surgical, as your example there, on how we treat different portions of the app. And not everything needs to go through every tool, right? So we can, if there's, a web page that has static content, or after it comes through a CDN and we're watching the dynamic calls to the origin, but it doesn't have like any forms where we need to do any input verifications, we can have less security things at that point and not have to have all the tools turned on. So the matter is having the right tool enabled for the right parts of the app. At the end of the day, being the most efficient is what helps customers.
Totally. I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
One of the great things that I've experienced, on the sidelines with Silverline is that, you're a part of so many different mail aliases in the organization. And I see these times where we have non-customers who are under attack. And there's this, hey, we're getting a call, from this customer who's under crazy amounts of pressure. Their apps are down, and within hours, there's a response, and now they are customers, and we're or maybe even there's been nothing signed, or I don't know how the sales side works, so I won't speak to that. But
this is DevCentral. We're not the sales.
I'm not a sales guy.
We deal with
Right.
features. Somebody else figures out the money.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So but I see people have gone from hard down to up and running, and at the beginning of the day they had no relationship with F5 at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a tremendous testament to the offering.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that there was actually some recent activity very similar to that, where we had a customer that was under threat for weeks at a time on end, where they had very slow response pages. Their customers were knowing this. They actually had notices on their website saying, "We're sorry, we're under attack. We're working on it. We see a light at the end of the tunnel coming. We've got these relationships set, so we're going to get things fixed." So we were actually able to go in and onboard. We did about a day of transparent, just to show them, here's what we're seeing, and we're knocking down a bunch of noise. Then we're going to turn on the rest of the mitigation once everybody's comfortable that things are still going to work, so the customer's happy. We did that within 24 hours of just showing them visibility. Then we went into full mitigation mode, and they were back up and running within minutes right there once we applied the mitigation. So, and they were a net new customer basically. So yeah, very common, where we can it comes down to, we can work in with whatever change windows that customer wants to apply to. Typically, the SOC is able to react faster than the customer is ready to. So we've had even cases where the customer will call in. And here's one thing that's unique about Silverline too, is different from other vendors or what other customers may have experienced, is when customers are interacting with our SOC, whether that's on the phone or via emails, they're actually they're talking to the people that apply policies for them. They're not, there is no front end ticket taker that's saying, okay, send me the information, I'll get the right agent for you to get the right to help you. No, they actually are the ones that pick up the phone and verify who you are. Once we verify, yeah, you're our customer, we're gonna fix what you need right there and then. So yeah, speed is amazing. We have some of the highest SAT scores that I've seen in the industry for managed services perspective things. And that is one point that even our existing F5 customers may or may not know. If they're looking to leverage the Silverline, it is a completely in addition to the regular F5 support, right? And we can engage, like if people, you mentioned, if their hair's on fire, their customers, they can always call our CERT team, which the SOC analysts do work in conjunction with. So whether it's something on-prem they're trying to solve and they say, we need, this is just too big, we can't handle it on-prem, we need to, revert traffic via BGP and do a, stop this volumetric attack, the Silverline SOC will work in conjunction with them to get all that stuff lined up. So yeah, it can be a matter of hours, and as fast as the customer needs to get things under protection to get things going. Or if it's just hey, my one app's being attacked because this is what's happening, that's just a matter of a DNS redirect, right? We get that traffic flowing through us and we start applying the policies. So yeah, very fast to react. And part of the, obviously it's nice to be part of the parent company F5, so we can bring all of our dev engineers to play. And the Silverline wing is, the managed services of that, helping deliver service on behalf of the customers.
Yeah, that's great.
It's amazing. I know that having, for certain companies, having a dedicated security team that can manage these policies and do all the security stuff is a challenge. So to know that it's like, hey, we've got some really, really sharp people at F5 Silverline that basically just, they do it for us. It's a powerful thing. Yeah.
And that's all they do. That's their day job, is protecting these attacks. They live and breathe it every day. So it's the best of the best people doing it. And I would claim with the best of the best tools.
Yeah. Yeah. So man, you mix all that in a big pot together. It's just a big pot of the best of the best.
There you go.
So it's just a beautiful, beautiful recipe. That's awesome, man.
It's like Ron Popeil's rotisserie chicken. You just set it and forget it.
And forget it, man. And it comes out a couple of minutes later smelling like beautiful, whatever. So that's awesome, man. Well, good to go, man. Well, Dan, I know we're kind of at time. I feel like we could talk about this forever. It's the time has seemed to fly by for us. But we want to be sensitive to you and your schedule. But I just knowing what Silverline is and the capabilities that Silverline can offer to people out there that need the security services that, man, they're so important today in today's world. I mean, whether you're a school and you got students hacking into your test, system or whatever, or you're a bank and it's guess what, you're going to get credential stuff like crazy and you're going to lose a bunch of money maybe or whatever. So to have that is such a critical feature set for so many companies. So man, I really appreciate you sharing what Silverline is and what Silverline does with the whole world, with all of our audience. So this is really cool. Awesome, man.
Well, I've enjoyed being here, so I appreciated the time, guys. And we're always available if any of the customers out there are partners or whatever. let us know, and we'll walk you through it. We'll help you understand it. We'll build the right solution to fit the right needs.
I love it. I love it. Hey, and the next time you drive from Minnesota to Virginia, you stay safe out there, Dan. Drink a lot of caffeine.
We're taking the private jets now.
There you go. I love it. Yeah, it's a little quicker route.
There you go.
Awesome, man.
All right. Appreciate
well, hey, take
you,
care.
Dan.
Thanks so much, Dan.
You guys have a good 4th. Happy belated
well.
Canada Day for our neighbors up north.
That's right. That's right. Good stuff, man. All right. Well, Dan, that was awesome to hear all about Silverline, and man, it's everything we said. I mean, so many companies are like, hey, I cannot handle all this security stuff, but yet I have to handle the security stuff because you just can't ignore it. There's no way. So anyway, good to go, man. Well, hey, I know we had a couple of hot takes we wanted to highlight today, right? Some stuff that's going on around the world.
Yep.
So anyway, are you ready with yours? You want me to go first?
I'll go with my first one. I may drop 2 today.
Oh,
but I wanted to say
I can't handle 2 hot takes.
Hello to my friend Rodrigo.
Albuquerque.
Thanks for joining us again. And the Silva drop top attacks against financial services orgs.
That's
cool.
cool.
You can hit up that YouTube link there.
The past few years.
For a second.
Yeah.
But my first one is there was an article on Google and just the Google, and it talking about Google blew a 10-year lead, and they're talking about, and this is not a hit on Google at all, because I'm actually going to talk about the implications in normal life for us as individuals, but any company, and they're talking about the author of a blog. It's just a personal blog. It's secondbreakfast.co is the blog, and so you can go out and check out secondbreakfast.co. But he's talking about the way he uses tools, and he started with the pretty much the whole Google suite, and using Sheets and Docs and all those things,
all the Google,
and how his daily workflow was a certain way,
right?
And then over time, other tools start to take his attention. It's like from his perspective, there just wasn't a lot of care and feeding put into the Google Docs suite. And so it's like, well, I could use Sheets, but now this new product is there's innovations here that make my workflow better. And so at the end of the blog, he kind of looks out all the different tools that he uses, and he still uses some of the Google suites, but other tools are starting to take over. Mm-hmm. And so pretty much the point of the article is staying on tap with innovation. And I know that whether it's been the DevCentral platform over the years, you have this tension between delivering new features and support and maintainability. Yeah. And so there's both are important. And that's not unique to Google. F5 as a company deals with that. Every company you've ever used deals with that. But I think as individuals, we have to deal with that as well, because we come with a certain skill set to the job we do. And that's not unique only to my work as F5. It's my role as a husband, my role as a dad, my commitment to the community that I live in. You have a certain thing that you bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And as time progresses, it comes back to intentionality. Mm-hmm. Are you wanting to grow what you're having, or is your product a cash cow? You think about something like toilet paper, right? There's just not a whole lot of innovation in toilet paper. It's 2-ply or it's not. It's soft or it's not. But that's kind of the way toilet paper is. There's no need for innovation there, right? But other things, there's an important thing to innovate on and to get better at, and that takes intentionality and setting goals and all of those things. So I read that article, and it's no knock on Google from my perspective. It's just a reminder to me personally that do I have a plan? Am I looking at a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How do I want to be a better dad? How do I want to be a better husband? How do I want to be a better F5er? Or am I content to sit with the skill set that I have? And, I think about my origins as a network engineer, and, I've added some software development on top of that over the years. And you look at where the industry's going, from a NetOps world to a DevOps world. Mm-hmm. And, certainly developers are able to come down the pipe into networking maybe a little easier than networking up, but there's valid and necessary skills from both.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concern I have as a network guy is that at the end of the day, speed wins. I think we've seen that no matter where you are, speed wins.
Yep.
And it's easier to say, hey, I got the market, so my way works. And so if you're a network guy and you don't want to climb the stack and learn a little bit about software, I think that's probably not a good long-term plan to stay relevant in the industry. So, I take an article like that and I'm reflective about what that means for me and my skill set and where I'm going.
You never stop learning. You never stop growing. You can't rest on your laurels, whatever that means. Never have really looked that one up, but you can't just get complacent and say, hey, I'm the best of the best, and that's just where it is. You always keep working hard. I mean, I think about people
That's
like
the ABCs, right? Always be working.
Always be working. ABC. That's right. It just flows. I mean, you even look at some of these, I think about like some of these, sports championship teams, and they will literally be handing them the trophy. And, you look at the Super Bowl or whatever it is, right? And the player will take the trophy and they're like, hey, what do you think? And they're like, man, this one's behind me. I got to look forward to next year. It's like, dude, you literally just won the thing. Or, maybe they'll be like, hey,
that's Bill Belichick. I think the
Bill
players
Belichick
are probably taking a little bit.
Yeah, there's some excitement. Maybe some Nick Saban, from college football here in America. But those are the guys that keep winning, But that's their mentality, is never, ever stop growing, never stop getting better. And that's what it takes. So you cannot sit and rest. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, as the world changes, if you're a network guy and you wanted to be, there's a lot of development stuff going on, be willing to grow into those new places. It's a good reminder for all of us. So, yeah, good stuff. Even for a huge company like Google.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
All right, you had a hot take as well.
Yeah, just a quick one. So there's some new legislation coming down here in America in the good old United States Congress, where they work hard and do only great things, right? So anyway, there's some
I have a bag for my head.
Yeah, exactly. There's some senators that are introducing legislation now. Whether that will go through the whole Schoolhouse Rock, bill becomes a law kind of thing. We'll wait and see, but they're introducing legislation to allow encryption to be broken, or basically telling companies, hey, if we, the government, come in and say we need to get your data because of the children, they a lot of times they blame it on the children. It's for the children, of course, or like terrorist activity or something like that. Then we need to have a capability to break encryption in your stuff. So you need to build that in, right?
Yeah.
And so there's that age-old debate of, to create backdoors or not. Some would claim, well, backdoors are created anyway. But that's some current legislation that's been proposed. There was another quick story that I saw just about a month ago. It's back in May, that I didn't see a ton of press on this, but it's out there. The FBI needed to crack into an Apple iPhone. And this made me remember back. This has been a few years ago. San Bernardino, California. There was a guy that was in just like shooting and all that. It was a bad situation, but he had an iPhone, and the government, the FBI, said, hey, we need to get into that because it may lead us to other evidence or whatever, right? And Apple was very adamant. They said, no, we don't even know how to break the encryption. Like, we haven't built in some kind of crazy backdoor, right? And so so there's this big back and forth, is the government going to make Apple, decrypt and all that? But then the crazy thing to me is that a little bit later, Jim Comey at the time, he was the FBI director at the time, he came in a little bit later and he was like, you know what, Apple, never mind. We got in, don't need you guys now. Which I think a lot of the Apple peeps were like, hey, wait, what? How did you get in? But literally just a month ago. So now current, it was Apple was like, hey, we're not gonna, the FBI needed in again. Really quick, I see Schoolhouse Rock, love it. Yeah, awesome, Chris. How does a bill become a law? We don't know that thing. So watch Schoolhouse Rock. So yeah, but anyway, the FBI needed in again to another Apple device. And again, Apple was like, no, we're not going to do it. There's a bunch of legal battle. Hey, can you compel them to, decrypt? But then again, the FBI was like, never mind. We just got in. So that's about a month ago. So there's this, the capabilities out there are just like, I don't even, obviously we don't all know the fullness of it all. But yet in the face of that, you do have current legislation that's being introduced at this point saying, hey, we need to make this inherently a part of how technology is developed. So I don't know, it's a crazy debate. What do you do? What do you do? How do you balance it all? So
yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, if anybody has the back door, someday everybody's going to have the back door.
Exactly.
So,
if there is a back door, guess who's going to find it?
Yeah.
The bad guys. So anyway, so I mean, what do you do with that? You get involved and I don't know, to the extent that it matters, write your congressman or whatever, or get educated on this stuff, and learn what encryption is and why maybe it should not just have a back door built into it so it can be broken whenever you want it to be.
I think ultimately people are going to be rolling their own encryption, which, and of course all the security people are like, don't roll your own
don't
encryption.
Do it. It's completely not safe. That will be broken about that fast.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just a crazy world we live in. I mean, maybe if nothing else, this is a good story of just be aware of what's going on around you, even if you can't personally make a huge difference. At least like, hey, this is what's about to happen, and I'd rather be prepared than completely ignorant on it. So anyway, so yeah, hot take. Disney Plus. I saw the school. Really? I didn't even know that.
I did not know that, so we'll have to go check that. Is part of the Schoolhouse Rock says, I'm just a Bill, I live on Capitol Hill. Was that Schoolhouse Rock?
I think it's been a couple
or
of
was that just like
seconds.
a Saturday morning cartoon thing? So
I don't know.
If anybody knows the answer,
I do have
inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, my kids wanted Disney Plus. We ended up getting it part of this promotional deal, so maybe I'll go fire it up.
There we go.
It is, Carl.
Confirmation. Thank you, Carl.
I'm just a Bill, live on Capitol Hill, and I most of the time do nothing at all because it takes forever and gets vetoed.
It just sits in committee.
Sits in committee. I'm being marked up in committee for 13 years. Yeah. So anyway, it's
crazy.
Good to go. All right. So Jason, you said you had 2 hot takes, or do we have time for the other one?
Yeah.
We're down to about 5 minutes here. So
all right. So yeah, my additional hot take is at the WWDC, Apple announced, the new lines of MacBooks that are coming out on Apple Silicon.
Oh yeah.
And so they're moving away from Intel chips and they're going to go to their own CPUs, which is that's a pretty significant thing. If
that's a huge
you
thing.
Remember back to like Power PC days, you're like, should you really do that? Maybe. but yeah, so they're rolling their own and I find that whole thing fascinating because even on COTS stuff, on the MacBook, they control the hardware, right?
Yep.
And so even though it's not their hardware specifically, they control which hardware goes into their laptops. And so when you control the hardware and the software, naturally, it's easier to support that. Mm-hmm. And unrelated, but I think back to when I was in college, I took an airline management class, and one of the decisions that we had to make, and if you ever played like the old Apple II lemonade stand game, and you have you have to make your decisions on, well, there's a forecast of rain, so maybe I make a little bit less lemonade. Mm-hmm. The game was kind of like that. But one of the things that they said is like, if you're an airline like Southwest Airlines, you fly one plane. Well, that makes maintenance a whole lot easier because you don't have to have crews trained up on 5 or 6 or 7 or 15 different planes.
Model numbers and all that, right?
You can move your crew around because they're all certified on the same airframe.
Right.
And it makes maintenance a lot easier. Well, I think the same is true of things like when a company like Apple controls the hardware and the software, it's way easier from a support standpoint. But now, as they're moving into running their own silicon, they're designing it specifically for their products. They don't have to plead with Intel to build or pay Intel to build their own features that help support their own products. Mm-hmm. And so, they can really shoot the moon. That's a Hearts reference. If anybody here plays cards,
get all the points, 26 points, right?
But they can really shoot the moon on their own direction. And so now not only are they supporting their own hardware from a standpoint of support, but they can really drive their hardware and software in alignment towards performance boosts. And I was reading one article talked about parts of the CPU that are being set aside for power management. So longevity of the device on a single charge has always been one of their flagships. And so being able to not only have the performance they want, but also the power management that they want, and they can drive that because they're designing everything soup to nuts. And I think that's pretty engaging.
It is. And we all know on our iPhone, when the battery goes out and it's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my whole world is just, it's just completely rocked. So when they can do something to control the battery percentage on my iPhone, I don't care what it is. I'm count me in, man.
You're there.
Exactly. That's another, actually, it's interesting on different encryption, cipher suites, and, efficiencies with that. And yeah, there's a lot of things that go into that, and frankly, at the end of the day, when you talk to some people, about, hey, this is really necessary because it's secure, or there's better, maintenance or whatever. It's fascinating to me that at the very end of the day, if you were to tell someone, hey, it's more secure or whatever, and they're like, I don't care. But if you told them your battery's going to last for 2 straight days before you have to plug it in, they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
Shut up and take my money.
Please take more of my money. So that's, there's all kinds of benefits, but it's a fascinating thing. Good to go, man. Well, good stuff. Well, hey, man, I know the hour, it just seems to go by, seems to go right on by quick. But it's been another fascinating DevCentral Connects show.
Yeah. So next week, we're back with another security sidebar.
That's right. A week from today, tune back in. Here's what we're going to talk about, by the way. This is a little teaser for those that have stayed to the end. On the security sidebar last time, we talked about just various topics, whatever, but someone had said, hey, why don't we talk about to the recognition between what's real and what's fake on social media and some of the security implications on that. So what we're going to do is take like some real world examples of headlines or posts or whatever from social media, and we're going to dissect those a little bit and say, is this real or is this fake, and why and how and all that stuff. And we're going to kind of train up a little bit on that. It's going to be amazing. At the end, you won't know which way's up or down or left or right. You won't even know what your name is. Who knows? It'll be awesome.
Well, that's exciting. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to joining in the audience.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it'll be a good show.
Yeah, that's great. And then 2 weeks from today, back with DevCentral Connects again, and we'll have a great one then as well. So it's great to see everybody.
All right. Well, thank you all. It's been a great hour, and we'll see you out there in the community.